Okay, I'm really excited about our journals because they're just going to be fat and chunky, and they're going to have tons of cool layers in them. And really, guys, your own creativity is the limit to this. You can include whatever you have, and that's what's so fun is that, you know, what you go scrounging, go look through all of your vintage ephemera, go look through what you have around the house, look for the things you can stain, look for, look for fabrics, look for some of your old art, cut things up and put it together. This is just a very fun hodgepodge of a journal that instantly lets you know that it's already well worn and well loved, even right from the beginning when you make it. And it feels so much better than buying a journal because it's not as intimidating. And then especially we're going to do some fun things to it also to kind of help you loosen up and to get you out there. But let me tell you kind of the bones of this before we get started. So, and maybe you can get thinking what you're going to use. First of all, I have created a pile here of everything in 6x4s, 6 inches by 4 inches. So I have watercolor paper, I have vintage ephemera, old book pages here, I have deli paper, I have tags, I have old library cards here, and then even the pocket. And then I put some extra watercolor paper inside. And here's another one that I'm not sure I might stick on. This one I moved to the side because it needs to be stuck on something. Here's some more deli paper. Here's an old postcard, but it has photos on it. Here's a cool old inside the cover of a book. For the library, here's some more vintage papers. And then, don't have them all go the right way. Like this one can go down. Here's just vintage ephemera, tags, book pages again. This is just a tea bag. This was just some paper, some gauze, some more watercolor papers, and I have lots of different kinds. I have cold press, hot press. I have some sketching paper in here. Here's some more deli paper. This is some old piano, one of the player pianos. A student gifted me a whole roll. Is that so nice? And some more deli paper. And just some textured scratch paper. But really, guys, this can be whatever you have on hand. Okay, so you can kind of see different shapes and sizes. And so this is what I'm going to make up, the main paper. But I'm also going to throw in some other things, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. I have some leather cord, and then I have 2 different kinds of, these have stickers on the back, and this is canvas, and this is linen, and so I'm not really sure what I'm going to use yet, and so we're going to use this to be the binding and the spine, but we're also going to use some glue, because I have a lot of things here. I have lots of papers, lots of ephemera. We're going to put in some of our rust-stained fabrics. I have a couple other things too. So even though we do have this canvas and it is sticky on the back, I'm going to go ahead and, just because I really want to make sure everything stays put, I have some of the book compound here that we're going to be using, and that's how I'm going to be gluing everything down. And I'll have links for all of this also for you. Okay, so our beautiful, so fun, beautiful rust-dyed flour sacks here. And I think I'm just going to pick out just a few. I really loved this, and I really loved this, and maybe this one too. I'm not going to use all of them, but I'm gonna cut out some 4x6 sizes to stuff into our book also. I also wanted to show you some other things that I'm gonna be cutting up in that 4x6 size to put inside my book. We all have sketches, whether it's in your sketchbook. This was just on newsprint, and it was something in my pile that was left over. And I'm just gonna cut it up in a couple of different, I'm just gonna cut the whole thing up, and I'm gonna put the whole thing in different pieces. So I'm gonna have like this piece in, and maybe this piece in. This will be a great backdrop. I am a big fan of taking my sketches and photographing them and printing them out and including them in other work. And so this is just an old sketch of mine that I photographed and printed out. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. So this is an original, this is a copy. I have a double exposure here. I have one of my sketches, and I brought it into PicMonkey, and I also added the one of the grain buildings here in our town, and I did a double exposure. And in another video, I'm going to show you how to do that. And so you can kind of mix some of your images, mix some photos of yourself, mix them with trees, mix them with different elements that you're going to take around town and bring them together and let them be a part of, and we're going to use this in another art project too, but I wanted this to also be a part of my journal. So we're going to be cutting this one up and including this. And then the last thing that we're going to be including in this is that I was sent by one of the members of the network. Their mom, I think it was their mom, had this great old picture of Castle Rock from 1941. Now, our town does not look like that at all anymore, and so it was just so wonderful, especially because Kelly and I had just walked down this road just the other day while we were out exploring, and it's full of houses now, and so it was so fun to get this photograph. So I'm going to be cutting this up and also putting this in. This is just tracing paper, and we ran it through our inkjet printer, and so I really encourage you, take pictures of your own artwork, print it out, buy other images that you would like to include in your art. I would just recommend that you use an inkjet. I've had the most success with that, but if you don't spray it with a fixative, you're going to end up with it smearing. So make sure you spray with a fixative, let it dry, and then it's good to go in your art. I'm going to do this one. This is another one, so fun, and this will be a part of a different project we're going to do also. This was an old school photo. I love school photos. Isn't it just stepping back in time, guys? Kelly and I were having the most fun. We were making up things about all the little kids, and that teacher looks like she's had it, if you ask me. But we printed this also out on the tracing paper, and I'm going to cut this up and include it in. So I'm going to cut these to the 4x6 sizes, and I'm not going to be too precise. You guys know I'm not that precise of a person anyways when it comes to art. So I'm going to speed it up, and I'll meet you back here, and we're going to start putting it together. So I have everything cut up and ready to go. It's pretty random, but I have made sure that some of the extra things I put in are spaced out so they're not all clumped in one area. I did want to show you, if you wanted to have a cover a little different, you could take the front and the back cover of an old vintage book, and you could use that, and then just kind of picture that this is going to be your spine and going to be created like this, and then you have this on top. So it really matters kind of what you have on hand. I would probably use this instead and cut it down. I am probably going to use the canvas with the sticky back only because it's thicker, and I just really want to make sure everything stays together. So, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use this or not. So I think I'm going to, I guess I need to make a decision now, huh? Let me go ahead and get this cut. Let's make it for this, but knowing that we might not use it. I want to have plenty. I can always change my mind. All right, I do not have a ruler, so I'm just going to use this board. And there's nothing precise about it, but it'll give me a line to kind of stick with. All right, it's not perfect, but all right, so what you're going for is that you want it to be wide enough that it's going to, now this is too wide right now, but I can cover that later. So we'll change some of this in a bit, but right now, and I'm not going to use these. As beautiful as they are, I'm going to take these out, and I'm just going to have this, the watercolor paper on the front, and do something with it later here in the class. And so I want to make sure that it is thick enough. So I'm probably going to come back and just trim it down again. Okay. That's going to be nice. It's going to cover it in thick, deep enough. And now we just need to make sure that we kind of figure out where it needs to end. And I'm not going to have it go past the paper, the first cover paper. We're just going to use this as our ruler. Okay. I'm going to straighten it up a little bit. I'm not using a cutting mat like I should. Make it a lot easier. All right. All right. So okay. So here we go. I'm going to have the book compound here. And I have my brush for it. And because I have so much, so much paper here, as sticky as this is, it's not going to be sticky enough to hold everything. And guys, if it's wonky, it's okay. It's all right. So, and you could just use regular canvas. I just had this on hand. You can use fabric, you can use vintage grain sacks, you can use whatever you want to be your spine, okay? So I'm just going to start here. Make sure it has plenty. Make sure the glue is getting down at the bottom. Be nice and generous with it the whole time. Like I said, don't worry if things aren't even. That's going to be part of what makes this beautiful. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this the whole way. Let me go down a little more so you can see that all I'm doing is just sticking one end into the glue and making sure I have lots of glue. And make sure that some of your pieces are up higher than the others, upside down. The more interesting, the better, okay? All right, I will meet you back here in just a bit, and I will speed this all up so you don't miss a thing. Okay, I have everything together except the front of the journal. So I'm just apply glue there for the front, the back, and then I'm gonna apply glue right here to the front. And I still have time to, if I feel like I might need to, I want to make sure it all will open. So that's my big thing now, is making sure that. So now we have a lot of glue, as you can see it pouring out. So right now I'm going to just make sure everything is in its place and give it a little time to dry. And we'll be back. Okay, it's still drying, but I thought it would be a good time to do the next step. And I love any time that I can tie up a journal. And so let me move some of this stuff out of the way. I just really like the extra, just how it all looks when it's bound up with some leather. Or with twine or with vintage fabric, whatever you have on hand. But I'm going to use the leather. Now, because I already have the spine on it, I just want this to be far enough out that this can tie, but this can wrap around multiple times. And I might even make this a little shorter. Okay, that might be better. That allows me to tie it a whole bunch of times around and then even stick it in if I want, or tie it on the side, or tuck both of those in. So how I'm going to attach this. I'm going to have this over here. What you could do is take a vintage spine from a book. I like it up higher, maybe kind of like right here. You could just glue this over it, and maybe that'll work. I think that would look really beautiful. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some vintage French linen. I just love the texture, if you can see it here. And I'm going to do some stitching into it. It's kind of how I like to do mark making in my art. I'm going to do that. Now, I don't need it to be too big, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And I think that's going to be great. So, what I'm going to do is just come in I just have some dark embroidery thread, and I have, I don't know, 3 or 4 strands of it. I'm just going to do some kind of tick marks. Now you could do marks this way, you could do little crosses, you could do, anything you want. Or you don't have to embroider it at all. But I just thought it would kind of complement what I already do in my artwork. And so I'm going to just keep doing just some mark making all the way down. So I'm going to speed that up, and I'll meet you back here in a bit, and then we'll glue it down. Okay, I have my glue, I have my leather, I have my kind of wonky stitched, the spine I'm going to use, which I love it. And so let me pull it out a little more so make sure you see everything. probably smarter to put the glue on this so that I know exactly where it goes. Be generous with it. Okay. Know where you want to have it and that it's not twisted. And I'm going to apply that like that. Let me make sure I have plenty of glue. Just want to make sure nothing pulls it up. Especially you're going to be out and traveling around or using this when you go on vacations or however you're going to use it. You just want to make sure it's really well made. All right, I'm kind of pressing this all down to make sure the fabric and the leather kind of getting all mushed together. All right, let me come down so you can kind of see it. You can do anything you want here, guys. You're the boss. Okay. And then I'm gonna let it dry. I'm gonna take it apart, but so when you're done, you're able to tie it, or you're able to kind of stick it in here. So I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna untie it, so as it dries, we don't dry any of the leather. Okay. Just really happy with how it's turning out. And my main thing will be to leave it alone so it can dry. So I'll be back to just show you everything when it's all the way dry. I wanted to show you something that after you've created your journal and as you've been creating with it, and if you feel ever like any of your pages, first of all, let's just take a minute to look through this because it's just fun. And it's still drying. I can always go back and it's just beautiful. I just love just how interesting it is. So in love with this. It's so beautiful. I can't even wait to dive in and start get paint in it. So what I want to show you, so I'm going to turn to this first page, just because it's easy to, let's say you notice that any of your pages are, you feel like they're not as tight as they should be. And like I said, this is still drying, so there are going to be some things we notice. But I wanted to show you, this is all just drywall tape, okay? And this is not sticky. I'm going to find some sticky stuff. This is a little older. And all of this is drywall tape. Drywall tape, drywall tape, drywall tape. You just get it at Home Depot or Lowe's. This is just packing tape, a brown packing tape that has to be wet. And then this is just artist tape, which I'm sure I have some that's open, but so I'm just going to show you that if you think that different parts should be a little, you want them to be down a little more, or you're worried that it's going to come up. I'm going to take some of this drywall tape. And you're just going to be reinforcing it, but it looks awesome. because I don't just want you to have a pretty journal. I want you to have a usable, sturdy, like hard-working journal, okay? I want you to have something you're proud of, something that, you want to create in. And so it needs to be a hard-working art journal, okay? So there's one example of just using the tape. So I'm going to go through after we're done, and I'm going to go through my whole book where I see it could use it. So let's go to another area, and this area doesn't look like it's bad at all, but I love this brown packing tape. All right, this brown packing tape is amazing for mixed media. And you can have a lot of fun with these. The only thing is you have to wet it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut some pieces. I'm just gonna dip it in water. Really, you just need the backside to get wet, but and the more you do all these little things, guys, the more I feel it takes away the fear of a blank page. And the whole time you're just making it more beautiful, more interesting anyways. Okay. And so you can do that the whole way, or you can just use regular artist tape if you want to do that instead, if that's the look you want. You can just and take that. And I even recommend do masking tape even. But how about instead of just taking a piece, why don't you rip it? That makes it a lot more interesting, right? To not worry about the perfection, not worry about the lines. Just wanted to show you that as you're working on your journal, as you're letting it dry, as you're using it, and maybe you're finding little imperfections, don't let that discourage you. Just add to it and find other ways to make it interesting and to make it stronger, okay? So now let's do some really cool backdrops on these to take away even more of the pressure and to bring just more fun into your creating. So let's go through our supplies and let's get this journal a little messy.